Listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, my name is Barb Bruno and I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Our topic for today is a very important topic for anybody in management or supervision, and that can you really hold people accountable? It's interesting because one of the most common complaints I hear from owners and managers is that it's impossible to hold people accountable. And what we're going to do during this webinar is prove that that is a myth. Today what I'm going to review are several topics. Number one, how do you learn how accountability affects your business? You're going to learn how accountability affects your bottom line. You're going to learn how to effectively hold your team accountable and basically just understand the why of accountability. So let's start with the first topic. How do you learn how accountability affects your business? You're in business to make a profit. In order to hit your budget and achieve sales and profit goals, the individuals who work for you must consistently attain production goals. Because in order for your business to grow and provide the lifestyle that you deserve to live, it must be profitable. See, if you don't hold your people accountable for attainment of their goals, you could jeopardize the future of your business. And what I'd love to share with you right now, I spoke at 30 conferences last year, and I can tell you I work with a lot of economists and people that are studying the staffing and recruiting profession, and there has never been a better time to be in our business. And there's no reason why you should not be flourishing in 2015. But one of the ways to do that is make sure that you have the right team in place and that you are holding people accountable to hit their goals. Your job as an owner or manager is to make difficult decisions and hold people accountable. And think about this, what you don't measure doesn't count. In order to implement accountability, you must manage by numbers and stats versus emotion. It's interesting because I came out of the real estate profession before I did this, and we all knew our ratios. We knew how many homes we had to, show before we sold. We knew how many homes we had to list before one was sold. And in most professions, whether it's real estate or insurance or even a car salesperson, they all know their numbers. And it always amazes me. I was recently in front of an audience of over 500 people in our profession, and I said, how many of you know your send out to placement ratio, your job order to fill ratio? How many of you know your individual stats? And less than 5% of the people in that audience put their hands up. And I said, then how do you know what you're supposed to do every day? And I would get answers like, well, I need to stay on the phone, I need to make calls, but they really didn't understand what results they needed every day in order to consistently hit their goals. I had an owner recently say to me that, well, it's sort of like this, Barb. 1 month they do really good, and then the next month they're flat, and then the next month they do really good, and the following month they're flat. And this owner had sort of accepted the fact that for 6 months out of the year they would absolutely produce, and for 6 months out of the year they would not produce that well, which shocked me. Because the truth of the matter is there's no reasons for slumps. The only reason that a person has a bad month is when they are having a good month, they're debriefing and prepping and doing everything, and they're not doing the basic marketing, recruiting presentations, presenting job opportunities, and basically setting up what they have to do to close more deals. So as an owner or manager, and I always say this to recruiters as well, you've got to know your numbers. You've got to know your numbers, and numbers makes managing so much easier. The one thing, the biggest mistake I see people making from recruiters up to managers and owners is that, if you set a goal for January and the goal is not attained, many people just erase the goal. And then they put the goal up for February on the board, or if you're working independently, you know what your goal is for February. Well, the minute you erase the goal, what you're saying is that goal wasn't really real. The difference between the goal that was set and the goal that was actually attained in January should be added to the goals for future months if it's not hit. Say that you're in direct placement and you said you were going to produce 30,000 in production and you did 28,000. Well, that $2,000 doesn't disappear. You can add 1,000 onto February and 1,000 onto March, or add 2,000 onto February if you feel that's doable. But as an owner or manager, the minute you let that board be erased and nobody's held accountable for the goals that are set, basically what you're saying is those goals aren't real. And what I'd love to share with all of you, the one thing beautiful about our profession is that there are no limits into what any of you can achieve. And especially in this marketplace, your owner or manager is never going to say to somebody, don't produce anymore, don't land any new clients, don't go out there and find new talent. The problem is that we talk to the same people over and over again and are not talking to 30 new people every day. A brand new person should talk to a minimum of 30 new people every day, telling them, what they have to offer them. And an experienced person should talk to 20 new people every day. And I was working with one of the largest franchises in the world, and I was doing some training for them, and I had them track this. I said, just track how many new people your team is talking to every day. And they said, Barb, they're talking to at least 20 new people a day. And I said, okay, you think that. I have a feeling they're talking to less than 5 new people a day. And when they studied, and they have, hundreds of offices, when they came back to me, they go, oh my God, they're talking to 4 new people a day on an average. And I said that therein lies the problem. Every day you got to go out there and tell new people how you can benefit them, and that's what your team has to do. But unachieved goals should never be erased. If you want to do yourself a big favor, at the end of January, if you have not attained a goal, you don't erase it. You take the difference between what you set and what was actually accomplished, and say that it's a big number. Say that you're $12,000, away from your goal. I'm hoping that none of you are that, are that much, or maybe you're grading the gross margin of profit if you're doing contract or temp, so then maybe you put 1,000 onto the next, the next 12 months, rather than putting 12, you can't put 12,000 onto the following month. You're going to set yourself up for failure. But stop erasing goals. One of the most damaging employees is somebody who has quit and stayed. And this person may have been a producer for you in the past, and you feel a sense of loyalty to them because of what they did, their past performance, but they might have lost the passion for our profession. And as a result, they're only staying because you're compensating them. I don't think you can just like recruiting. I think this is a profession that you have to love. Most of the people in our profession that I've met were basically social workers who like money. We really want to help people. We really care about the human race. And almost everybody that I've met throughout my 25 plus years in this profession, I've liked. I think the people that are in our profession are pretty terrific people. The problem is sometimes you're keeping somebody, working for you that has lost the passion. And when somebody loses their passion, they can't do this job, because we have people's lives in our hands every single day, and they deserve us to be operating at a level 10 every single day. And if you've got somebody working for you that lost their passion, they're not doing, the job they should be doing for the people they're representing. When you don't hold non-achievers accountable, it'll have a negative impact on the people who are producing and attaining goals. Because what they're doing basically is they're wondering why you're not addressing the people who are not producing, and they're questioning your ability to manage. And this could result in you losing some of your current high performers. I was helping, there's a organization, and they have, I think, 210 recruiters nationwide. And last year they had a 20% turnover. And they were devastated by it because their tenure in this organization had been very solid for years. And a 20% turnover for them was very costly because they do high-level contract. And many of these people had great relationships with their candidates and clients, and the owner was just devastated. And he goes, I don't know what's going on, but something's going on. Would you perform some exit interviews for us? Because maybe they'll talk to a third-party person. And can you get to the bottom? Because when we asked them, they said they had different opportunities. They just lost the passion. They were not staying in the profession. Well, the truth of the matter was that most of the people left their company because there were people that worked for that company that were not allowed to be touched. And they said the sacred cows in this company that don't do anything and don't produce anything, they're just, basically they're getting bonuses based on what our office does, and they're not doing the work. And so the reason we left is, that as a top performer, sometimes we give the worst accounts to the top performer, where basically you should be giving your top performers the best clients to represent, but it's very costly when you lose a high performer. And so this is one of the main reasons, not holding the rest of the team accountable, why high performers will leave. As a business owner or manager, you have to be very comfortable in holding your team accountable, because basically that's part of your job and responsibility to protect your business. I can tell you in 2009 to 2011, we saw 60% of the staffing and recruiting profession disappear off the face of the earth. And there were some reasons. One of the main reasons were they kept people way too long that were not performing. The other thing is most businesses were making 75% of their revenue from 5 clients or less. Now, I don't know if that is basically what any of you are doing that are listening to my voice today. But if you're making 75% of your revenue from 5 clients or less, that is not a secure business. Imagine if 3 of those clients stopped hiring. And even if you're dealing with the VMS, where they've got multiple openings, if your report card every quarter is not high, you could lose, your position with those organizations. And the problem with VMS is it's often low margins, because the margins are set. It's nothing that you can negotiate. And so, you've got to be comfortable in holding people accountable, and you need 10 key accounts and 20 backups. That is recession proof. That is very solid, because you've got 10 people that call you first, and they've got multiple positions that they'll hire in your niche or specialty area, and the 20 backups know who you are and what you do. And so if any of those key accounts stop hiring, you've got these backups that still use you. Maybe you're one of a few sources they use, but they still know who you are. And so, if you don't have that type of client base, and you might say, but my 5 clients are giving me enough, business to keep me busy. But again, if there's a downturn and you have only a handful of clients, you're not protecting yourself. And you've really got to think about yourself and your business. Now, how does accountability affect your bottom line? Because remember, as I said earlier, your job as an owner or manager is to be profitable. Your budget is based on projected sales goals set by your sales team. So if members of your sales team don't attain the goal set, basically you're not going to hit projected sales or profits. And I don't think it's good for an owner or manager to tell a recruiter what they're going to produce in the next year, because if that person doesn't align it to what's important to them, they'll never do it. As an owner or manager, I used to make a major mistake. Every December, we have an annual meeting in my organization, and I would stand up in front of my recruiters and I would say, okay, next year is going to be a record year, and here's some of the things we're going to do. And I would talk about how we're going to break records, and I was envisioning it to get them excited and motivated and see all the additional possibilities of what they can earn. And I would watch, and I'd see certain people, their eyes would roll, or they'd look at each other. And I walked up to them and said, what's wrong? And they said, we just don't know what you're going to do to us next year if you want a record year, because we don't know that we could do better than we did this year, because those people didn't have the aspiration to become a big biller. You can't make somebody a big biller or a top producer. You hire big billers or top producers. You hire people that have been overachievers their whole life and overachievers in their last job, no matter what they did, and they'll be an overachiever of you. But if they don't hit their goals, you can't give somebody a goal, and when you give them the goal, they look at it like, fat chance of that happening, because it affects your budget. You're in business to generate profits and protect a healthy bottom line, not provide jobs for the people that you employ. Your sales team is either adding to your bottom line or they're taking away from it. And you can't afford to retain individuals who are not profitable and add to your bottom line. The majority of your time should be spent focused on helping your high achievers, not trying to save individuals who are not profitable. This is another mistake that I made for years. Because I'm a trainer as well as a business owner, and I've been a top producer, my entire career, I always felt that I could make somebody else a top producer. And so I would spend endless hours, if I saw somebody struggling, I would spend endless hours trying to save them, and not enough time really looking at my big billers and what I could do for them to retain them, to make sure that they were happy, to constantly challenge them, to give them new areas of responsibility so I didn't lose them. And so the majority of your time should be spent focused on the people that are really producing. And it is important to implement an indefinite probation plan with a plan of action to protect your bottom line and your business and your profits. You can then mentor and micromanage the individual, who will do one of two things. Either they will turn around, or they're no longer going to be employed by your firm because they've quit and stayed. The passion is gone. And, whenever you have somebody that's not producing, I think it's important to sit down with them and say, listen, and I know that you're not hitting your numbers. Let's talk about how we can turn this around. Here's a plan. And at the end of every day, you've got to meet with that person, because I can tell you most of the people that I've put on probation, they've turned around and they still work for me. We've got great tenure. But even some of my senior people just might have something going on in their personal life. They could all of a sudden, who knows what goes on. Because I think the one thing we can be assured of is it's never going to be the same, because we have people on both sides of our sale. And so I think it's important that, you really do give them a plan of action. You can't just say you're not hitting your goals. If you don't hit your goals in the next 30 days, you could lose your job. That's not fair. You've got to give them a plan of action and tell them exactly what they need to do to turn it around. Anyone currently working for you who is not making you money and not being held accountable is negatively affecting your bottom line in your business. It's also, by the way, really affecting your morale. It'll affect the morale of your team. Even if this person is not costing you money, they're consuming your time and efforts, and they're taking up space on your team that could be filled by a high achiever. What is your time worth? What is your time worth? that you're spending with people that are not, not achieving goals. Now, how do you hold your team accountable? And I think this is probably one of the most important parts of the program I'm giving you today, because I know a lot of owners just look at me and say, but how do you hold, people accountable? They come in right before we start. They leave at 5 o'clock. They never do any research at night. They don't want to, make calls at night. I think it comes from your hiring. You've got to hire people that are overachievers that realize this is a career and not a job. Our job is not an 8 to 5 job. You've got to touch people in the evening hours. The good news is when we work overtime, we need a phone. We need our mobile device. And I just a hint to all of you, most of my big producers come out of hotels. If I'm looking for somebody, I will call a hotel and say, I'm planning a function. Can I talk to somebody in the sales office? And I listen to them on the phone, and I'll go meet with them as if I'm going to hold a function at their hotel. And these people are college grads with great communication skills, and they're used to working 60 hours a week. Because when you sell an event in a hotel, you have to work the event. So they're used to working holidays and weekends and evenings. And when they come and work for us and they realize all they need is a mobile device to work overtime, that they're not at our office, they think they died and went to heaven. And so, if you're looking to hire new people, you might consider recruiting them out of hotels. But let's get to some strategies on how to effectively hold your team accountable. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you 6 specific strategies. Now, what I would like to say to all of you, and I will open the lines for your questions when I'm done with the presentation, what I'd love to have each one of you do is just pick one of these strategies to implement, and implement it for 21 days, because it takes 21 days of repetition for something to become the way that you do things. And if you try to change too much, you'll change nothing. And so, whatever is resonating with you during the session, what I would love as a result of this call, I want you all to understand that I would much rather work a desk than train. I find it just invigorating to find people jobs and to do what we do for a living. The reason I train is because many trainers have never worked a desk, or they're not currently, in the thick of things. And so when I listen to some of the information being shared out there, it makes me nervous that they're hurting people and not helping them. And the only reason I train is so that I can have you make more money, so you can be more successful. And so it's not enough just to come to this call today. It's not enough. What you have to do is you have to implement something you heard. And my suggestion would be, if you've got 2 or 3 things you like, write them down and figure out the thing that would help you the most first. And imagine if you implemented one new idea in every month this quarter, one new idea in January, one in February, and one in March, the impact that would have on your business and on production and profits. Just one new idea. So idea number 1, strategy number 1, is mandate 10 non-negotiable goals and dated action items. And this is something you should be doing as well, because people will only attain a higher level of success for their own reasons and not yours. They will not do it because you want them to do it. They will only do it for their own reasons. And they need to set goals in all aspects of their life, and include dated action items. I did this wrong for the first 15 years I was in our profession. I was a single mom, and I found myself all of a sudden supporting my children with no support. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? And that's when I opened my staffing and recruiting firm. I thought, you know what? I went to staffing and recruiting firms, to be real frank with you, and didn't like how I was treated. And I thought, I could do this. If that's, the kind of people that are in this profession, I could do this. I've sold real estate. I can do this. And the reason I went from real estate to our profession is at the time that I was going through my divorce, interest rates went over 20%. And so it was becoming impossible to sell homes with the interest rates so high. And so I would write down goals every year. I'd write down these goals and I'd have them posted and that. But what I forgot to do was put goals in all areas of my life. And these are any areas that are important to you: education, health, personal, philanthropic, spiritual, anything that's important to you. And of course you're going to put some goals that are career related or monetary related. But unless you put action items under the goals, and unless the action items are dated, goals become nothing more than a New Year's resolution. And what I find sad is most recruiters, most owners and managers set goals in December of the prior year. And then they put them in a drawer. And then the next year, when the owner says, I want you all to set goals, everybody pulls out those goals and said, you know what, those are really good, and they just changed the year at the top of the page. Wouldn't it be great if 2015 was the year that you turned off your automatic pilot, that you set some goals and that you posted them, and that this is the year that you attain 10 non-negotiable goals in all areas of your life? If you could have the best year of your life, what would you bring into your life? And what you do is, and I believe that goals have to be posted where you can see them as you work. Because if it's 5 o'clock, rather than running out the door, if I'm trying to earn X amount of dollars because I want to send my kids to the best college, I'm going to stay a little longer and make those calls, or I'm going to make a few phone calls at night. I'm not going to do it because my manager or my boss wants me to, but I will do it for the people I love. People are motivated, and you got to think about this again. Many people that enter our profession are great givers. They're not good takers. I find the people that do what we do for a living take care of everybody. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your kids, take care of your friends. You're that caretaker. You're that person. What I would like to explain to you now, though, is if you don't learn how to be a good receiver, wherever you are now is where you could stay. You might be in a comfort zone now, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to be in a comfort zone. You want to constantly improve. And the only way to improve is to set goals in all aspects of your life. And I would really put this out as a challenge that by Monday, I'm recording this call on a Thursday, that wouldn't it be great if by Monday, everybody that worked for you, and you included, had goals with dated action items that are posted where you work. And as you finish the steps, you highlight them, and once you finish the 3 to 5 action items, you've attained the goal. And that's what is so beautiful about this, is that you will attain the goals set. They will not be New Year's resolutions. You will attain everything that you set. Strategy number 2 is, I think you have to determine small rewards and consequences. And this goes for everybody. I've got people that I train that are sole proprietors. And they're like, how do I put rewards and consequences for myself? Well, I was working with a top producer from California, and he loved Steuben glass. Now, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know what Steuben glass was, but it's extremely expensive, and he collected pieces of Steuben glass. And I said, well, how about you set up, quarterly goals, and if you hit the goals that you want to hit, you can buy yourself a piece of Steuben glass. And he's got one of the most outstanding collections of Steuben glass of anybody, because he's been doing that now for close to 10 years. But, what are the rewards if I attain my goals, and what are the consequences if I don't? And think about the people that work for you, that you supervise. If they attain their goals, determine how they'll reward themselves. Because if you're only working to pay bills and that's all you're doing, it gets very tiring. And it could be something small, like if I attain my goal, I'm going to get a manicure and pedicure for a woman, or I'm going to get tickets to a game for a guy, or whatever. I mean, it could be something small. But how are they going to reward themselves if they hit the goal? Obviously, in addition to the money that they're going to make, but what are they going to do for themselves? And if you're working in a team, everybody should basically say how they're going to reward themselves. It was interesting. When I had my office in Chicago and I had 80 recruiters, the girls that worked for me, the women that worked for me, were into shoes. I mean, they were into shoes like nothing I've ever seen, and not normal shoes. I mean, extremely expensive designer shoes. And I think those women had the biggest shoe collection I've ever seen in my life, because often that's what their reward was. And at the end of the month, anybody that hit their goals, they went right on the Magnificent Mile in downtown Chicago, and they came back and were showing everybody the shoes that they bought, because they just loved that. But if they didn't attain goals, we would determine what they would give up. And this has to be something fun that you can see in your office. And I'll give you an example. I love Chinese food, and so if I didn't hit certain goals, I would not eat Chinese food the following month. I had people give up Diet Coke, or give up coffee, or give up their iPod, or whatever. They got to give up something that you can see at work. Or I had one person that worked for me loved to go out to lunch. Obviously Chicago has 1,000 places you can go to lunch within a few minutes radius. But if he did not hit his goals, he brought his lunch every day for a month. And believe me, when he had to bring his lunch every day and not go out, it really affected him, and believe me, he hit the goals the next month. And you want to determine in advance what the rewards are, what the consequences are, and again, everybody commits to adding the unattained goals to future months' production, because now it's kind of fun. It's fun if you attain your goals, because I think, again, because we're social workers who like money, you're working hard. What we do is not brain surgery, but it's not easy with people on both sides. There's a process. And if you skip, any part of that process, you can have deals blowing up on you. And most people I know, in fact, I just did a survey of all of our training clients, and almost 100% of them had a record year in 2014. And I'm hoping that all of you did. But if you did not, you can't do things the same way in 2015 and expect different results. The market is great, but what can you change? And see, if you and your team are not having a knot in your gut, or a lump in your throat every so often, that means you're not learning new things. You want to get out of that comfort zone. Strategy number 3 is you've got to track stats and ratios because it's the only way to effectively manage. Everybody should focus on the daily results they need to consistently hit or surpass goals. And daily results that are not attained should be added to the next day. And let me give you an example of this. Say that I'm only working the candidate side of the sale. That's all I do. I'm a recruiter. I'm only working the candidate side of the sale. And I know by my numbers, I want to make a placement a week. And so I know that I get a placement. If I book 5 send-outs, I know I get a placement. So I worked my numbers backwards and thought, okay, to get a send-out a day, this is the amount of new people I have to interview every day. So say my number is I have to interview 3 people a day, 3 brand new people every day. All right? And say that I interviewed 3 on Monday and 3 on Tuesday and 3 on Wednesday, and today I only interviewed 2. Well, tomorrow I have to interview 4 because I know unless I do 15 interviews in a week, I'm not going to hit my goals. This takes the mystery out of especially those of you that are only doing direct placement. Contracted temp, you've got that reoccurring revenue model, and you don't start the month off blank. But if you're doing contingency search, direct placement, every month you start at that big 0. And so you've got to know exactly what results you need every single day, and you don't give yourself a break. And to be honest with you, when you see that, okay, if I do this, then I could put this much money away for my kids' college, or then I could take the trip to Italy, or then I can buy the new car, then you're willing to do it. Then you will consistently hold yourself accountable. But, again, individuals have to learn to hold themselves accountable too. Strategy number 4 is focus on increased number of send-outs. People ask me all the time, what is the most important thing to focus on? If I want a better year this year than last year, Barb, give me one thing I can do. This is what you could do. You can increase the number of send-outs. Now, I want to give you my definition of a send-out. My definition of a send-out is a candidate in front of a hiring authority first interview. That's my definition of a send-out. The main focus of all of you is to get candidates in front of hiring authorities daily. Get new people in front of a first interview hiring authority every day of your life. And when you do that, now if you're doing office support, light industrial, sometimes in light industrial they just have the person show up. But you've got to know your numbers, and your job really is to get people in front of hiring authorities as often as possible. I'm not saying just throw, nonsense out there, but one of the ways that you can absolutely guarantee that this happens is, get interviewing times when you take job orders, temp assignments, or contracts. We've got 7 criteria for a hot job order, and one of them is we get interviewing times because we want, when we have interviewing times, then we know we're going to book send-outs. How many times have you worked an order and then you're trying to book your candidate on an interview and the hiring authority disappears off the face of the earth and you're going, oh my God, like what's going on here? When you get interviewing times up front, you ask for an alternate person if they're busy that you can call to just confirm the interviews. It'll change your life. And again, the main focus of everybody in your organization daily has to be to get more people in front of hiring authorities. I spoke to a franchise group in November, and all they did was place high-level accounting people. And I asked them their send-out to placement ratio. How many people do you have to send out in a first interview before somebody is hired? Surprisingly, they didn't have definite numbers as a group. And these are people that come out of accounting and that are dealing with details all the time. They finally come up with the number 6. They said, Barb, I think 6 to 1 would be about where we're at. And I said, okay, tell me how many send-outs you book in a month. And after we took a survey of the audience, they're averaging 10 a month. So think about that. They have to send 6 people out to get a hire, and they're sending 10 people out. So they're not giving themselves a chance to get that second sale. And so I looked at them and I said, all you have to do is book 2 more people a month, and you will double your production and double your income and double your sales. And they looked at me and go, what? And I said, well, if your number is 6 to 1, you've got to book 6 send-outs to make a placement, and you book 12, you now have a chance to make 2 placements. In fact, if I was you, I'd try to get 13 or 14 and give myself a little bit of a cushion. And it's interesting because the owner of the company and I just talked yesterday, and he said, you are not going to believe this, Barb. I've got a handful of people in every office that took your words to the bank, and they've doubled their production. I had the best December I've ever had. We're going into January very strong, and now their whole focus is on send-outs. And so if you want one solution to do better this year than you did last year, increase the number of send-outs, increase the number of people that you're getting in front of hiring authorities. And the minute somebody's screened out, backfill. Your goal should be to get 2 to 3 people in final interviews, because you don't want to be 1 out of 6 or 1 out of 5. You keep working on the order, the TEP assignment, or the contract until you get an offer. Strategy number 5 is you've got to get organized. You've got to clean what is on, in, and around your desk. Prosperity is not attracted to disorganization. I love when I do this at conferences, and then I have owners call me the following Monday, and they go, you scared the living daylights out of us. All of a sudden we came in, and we saw some of our top producers cleaning out their working area. We thought they were quitting. And they said that you told them to organize themselves most. You're using 20% of what's in, on, and around your desk. You've got to get organized. You've got to quit spending time looking for things. Strategy number 6, and this I would suggest for anybody in our profession. And if you're an owner or manager, you're going to do this twice. You're going to have your recruiters and your sales team do this once, okay? They're going to conduct a weekly review, and I would suggest you start doing this tomorrow. That's Friday. You're going to look at this last week and put down, what did I do right? So you're going to do this for yourself first. What did I do right? What's that 20% of what I did that gave me 80% of my results, because I'm going to do more of those activities next week. And how did I waste my time this week? And let me give you an example of wasting time. We place 5% of the people that come to us. All the time you spend talking and giving free advice and taking status calls and incoming calls from the other 95% of the candidates you will never place is a total waste of your time. Writing business that you should have never written, let alone worked. Waste of time. So you look at what wastes your time, and you're honest with yourself. You stop doing those things immediately. And it's really fun if you're in a group to do this as a group, because you might not pick out something that's wasting time, but your coworkers will. And then what new idea am I going to implement this next week? See, if you do this review every Friday, you might have a bad week. You'll never have a bad month. You'll never have a flat quarter, because every Friday you're holding your feet to the fire. What did I do this week that worked? What did I do this week that worked? In fact, what you might want to do the first time you do this is look at last year. I'm recording this call in the beginning of January. Look at last year in 2014. What did I do right? What's the 20% of what I did that gave me 80% of my results? What are my best talents? And focus on doing more of those things, and then get rid of the time wasters, because you can't implement new ideas, because you probably think, now there's no time to do anything. I'm so busy. But if you stop doing things that waste your time, you could easily put 60 or 90 minutes back in your day. Provide resources for the people you're not going to help. Do not take incoming calls. And the problem is, it's easier to take an incoming call than to make a planned outgoing call, but it's not profitable. It's not profitable. And then what you're going to do, as an owner manager, you do this for yourself, and then you look at your whole business. What did my team do right? How is my team wasting their time? And what new ideas do I want them to implement? And again, I believe in implementing one new idea every month, because that's when it becomes part of your automatic pilot. Think about this morning when you woke up and you jumped in the shower, took a bath, or do whatever you do. You didn't think about, what am I going to wash first? You didn't think about, ladies, gee, do I put my blush on or my powder? And guys, you didn't stand in front of a mirror and go, what side of my face do I shave first? You're on automatic pilot. You probably drove to work the same way, using the same. I used to drive from Indiana to Chicago. I did that for 26 years. And half the time I'd pull into the garage of my building, and I didn't even remember driving there, because I did it for 26 years. The problem is you're all on automatic pilot right now at work. When you arrive at work, you've got your routine, whether you get a cup of coffee, stop at Starbucks, or whatever you do, whether you arrive with all your outgoing calls planned, or whether you start doing that work, during working hours, you've got a pattern right now. And the problem is, a lot of the habits you've developed are good, but you've probably got some bad habits. And the only way to change things is to imagine a big light switch in the middle of your chest and turn it off. And be very aware of the actions you're taking and decisions you're making, every day, and try to implement a change that's going to help you work more effectively. And this weekly review, it's worth its weight in gold. I have many companies that are doing this now, and they said it's really changed things. It's eliminated slumps. It's eliminated, problems from getting too big. Now, understand the why of accountability. I've probably given you a lot of reasons why throughout this session, but when someone is not performing on your sales team, they're well aware that they're not carrying their weight, and they're not thrilled with their performance, and often stay out of loyalty to you and your company. And it's not good for them. It's not good for you. Holding people accountable shows them that you care enough to offer to work with them to turn things around. You will also at times come to a mutual conclusion that this profession is not what they're meant to do. but it's the kind thing to do. When it comes to, I want you to write this down because this is not necessarily on the handout or part of this program. There's 3 things everybody wants to know, and these are your clients, your candidates, the people that work for you, your family, your spouses. People want to know 3 things. Number 1, do you care about me? Number 2, can I trust you? And number 3, do you do what you tell me you're going to do? Because every time you're talking to somebody else, what they have on their forehead is what's in it for me. In order for somebody to listen to you, they have to see what's in it for them pretty quickly up front. And when you're holding people accountable, what you're showing them is, you're at a crossroads, I know it. I'm going to do everything I can if you want, to try to turn this around. And sometimes people just don't want it anymore. They don't want to do this, and it's good for you to find out. The staffing and recruiting profession is not meant for everybody. You can't just like being a recruiter. I don't think you can like being a recruiter because a lot of stuff happens. I think you've got to be passionate about what you do. You've got people's lives in your hands, and the truth of the matter is if you're not passionate, the rejection and the surprises that we all hate, they get to become too much because you're not passionate about what we do. You have to hire people that are going to be passionate about this career. And why should you hold your people accountable? It's very simple. It's the right thing to do for them. It's the right thing to do for yourself, and it's the right thing to do for their coworkers and your business. Again, when you hold people accountable, it helps everybody, everybody. And those of you that are parents, if you don't hold your kids accountable, what happens? And accountability has become almost extinct. People don't like being held accountable, but I think when you do it in the right way, and you let people know that you want them to attain their goals. If somebody that worked for me did not attain their goals in January, what I would say to them is, I would say, you know what, I don't want you to give up your goal in January. I know you're trying to achieve some wonderful things this year, so I don't want you to give up your goal in January because you didn't hit your numbers. Let's take the difference and add it on to future months because you can still do this. The market is great, and so are you. And so always when you're approaching anybody with an idea or a change, always show the what's in it for them, before anything else, because then they're going to listen because you're addressing what's most important for them. Now, I'm going to open the lines for questions in just a second. If you enjoyed this presentation and you really want to increase sales and profits, we can give you a free demo of a training program that we have. I do live calls like this every Wednesday for the people in my training program. So I do live calls, I do biweekly coaching calls, plus they have access to all of our forms and proprietary information. And anybody that is investing in our training program in the month of January is also getting our 26-week strategic management tutor free. You can get a free demo, or you can contact us either by email, or you can call our office. And so I put the email and the phone number down on that screen now. And so if you'd like to get a free demo, the demo is just your ability to see what we have, and then we give you an hour of access. And you can click around and see whatever you want and see if it's something that will help you. We've had 25,000 recruiters worldwide go through this tutor. 100% of our clients have increased sales and profits. So we know our training program works because it's very current, and there's a lot of interaction with our training clients. Okay, now to ask me questions, you can go to the attendee list, and when you called in, you were given a phone number, an access code, and a PIN number. If you put all 3 numbers in, you can see that little yellow hand by your name. Just click on that yellow hand and I can unmute you. Or there's a control panel on the right. There's a word question. Just click on that plus sign to the word question, and it'll open a dialog box. And basically just type in any questions. And by the way, it doesn't have to be about what we talked about today. It could be about anything you want. If you don't want me to use your first name, I do use first names, when I answer questions to try to personalize it. So if you don't want me to use your first name, just put down anonymous or confidential. Let's see, we've got 5 or 6 questions here. So, okay, can you please send the slides out after the call? Yes, what I'm going to do, anybody that basically signed up for this call, we're going to send you a recording of the call. Because I think that would help all of you, and we had a lot of information, and so we will send information out after this to all of you that registered. Let's see. I am a person with 15 years tenure on my team. Will your training help them? It's interesting you asked me that because I have a company in Houston where their average tenure was 18 years. And the owner is a friend of mine, and he said, you know what, sometimes I think my big billers need, new ideas more than my rookies do. Will your program work for them? And some of his big billers didn't want it because there's an 80-day program, 15 minutes a day. where they, they go to the training, they write down what they've learned, and every 5th day they're tested to make sure they're retaining the information. Well, a lot of his big billers didn't think they needed it, so they didn't read much. They just went to take the test and started failing. And it was interesting because then they started racing who could get it done first. And I'm like, you don't want to do that. You want to do 15 minutes a day. Well, his company is one of our clients that had the biggest increase in sales. And these are people that were at it, 18 years plus, and they had the biggest jump in sales. So our training helps brand new rookies, and it also helps experienced people. Let's see here. Okay, a brand new person should talk to 30 new people every day. Experienced should talk to 20 new people a day. With current culture where people do not answer their calls and let calls go to voicemail, how can you accomplish this? See, that's the thing is, I think that we've all kind of accepted that our clients only want to talk to us by email. The rule in my organization is that every third contact has to be a phone conversation, and they will have phone conversations if, in fact, you leave the right voicemails. We leave a voicemail, we've got an 85% return on the voicemails we leave for people. And so, we've got a very strong return on the voicemails we leave, and these are even some new people that we're leaving voicemails for. We get callbacks. So it's all in the message that you leave for them. You've got to show them what's in it for them to call you back, and I do think that, again, it's a relationship building business. Even people that date online eventually have to meet. If you're not a trusted advisor, if you're not consultative to clients and candidates, you're never going to produce what you could produce. And so, it's a matter of leaving the right voicemail that's going to be returned. It's a matter of, expecting to talk to them, that every third we tell people every third conversation, we'd love to have a conversation with you because we learned so much by having you on the phone. And so we do talk to people constantly. And every time I hear a recruiter say, well, my clients won't talk to me, sure they will if they see what's in it for them. But if they don't see what's in it for them, they're not going to talk to you, and they're not going to return your voicemail. And even when you call a client and you're calling for an update or a status report, I train 50% in the recruiting profession and 50% to employers. I just left the CEO conference, a couple months back, and I had 1,500 CEOs that I was training. And, and it was interesting because I can get through to just about anybody. And it's just been a game that I've played my whole career. And what they said to me was the reason that we don't return a lot of calls is because you all tell us you're different and you all sound alike. When you tell us I'm better than my competitors and we ask you how are you better, you all say the same things. We want to deal with people that are different and can, give us information. And if you call for an update, if they had an update, they would have called you. You've got to call and offer more information if you want to be called back. They don't see the benefit to them to update you. They would see the benefit if you had information that would help them. This is from Ryan. Hi, Barb. One challenge my recruiters are facing are making their metric numbers for references. Any suggestions? It's interesting. We check business references. We're also checking 2 personal references. And we've been doing this about 5 years, Ryan. And we're getting more value out of the personal references than we are out of the professional references. You are still checking professional references. And when you're getting references from people, you've got to make sure that, they're giving you direct lines. These people, when they had supervisors, they know the direct phone lines. They know how to get around it. The problem is if you're calling HR or you're calling a switchboard, they're screening you out. And so the main thing is to get the direct line, and also check personal as well as business references. And let me tell you why they help. The personal references have no filter, and they don't know what's legal and what's not legal. And so they just tell the truth. And they give you all kinds of information that gives you great insight into your candidates. So what we say to candidates is, we've interviewed you for an hour. Obviously, we're going to, I want your references for business, but I'd love to get a couple personal references, people who really know you, because I really want to get to know you to do the best job I can for you. And if you can get their best friend as a reference, it's worth its weight in gold. It's worth its weight in gold. And obviously we ask a personal reference different questions than we ask a business reference. And again, if any of you, look at our tutor program, you're going to see our reference check forms for personal. We have a send out hot sheet. That's the only manual system. My office is 100% automated, except we have a send out hot sheet, and that's where all the focus is put because they're on a clipboard. You can look at all those things and you can use them or duplicate them or whatever for your own business. But again, I think that, you've got to, and when people won't give us a reference, this is something I've done for years, Ryan, is I go, okay, I understand that it's, that you've got some restrictions, that you can only give dates of employment and, and salary, but, I put my reputation on every person I represent. and it worries me that I haven't been able to get a reference. Can I just ask you one question off the record? If you were me, would you represent this person with one of my best clients? And if they say yes, you know that you've got a decent reference. If they say no, then you know you've got to dig further because something's here. So when you say off the record, people open up. It's not really off the record. I mean, you're writing it down, but it makes people more comfortable. Let's see. What do you feel is the reason clients are screening out most of the candidates we're presenting, but they are qualified? I've learned a long time ago that when you send in a rock star, the hiring process goes much quicker and they book them almost instantly. And so you might think they're 100% fit, but do you really know the job? Do you really know the job? See, we send a copy of every job order, every contract to our clients, and we want everybody in the interviewing process to sign off on it. Because often, over 50% of the time, they make changes, and sometimes they're major changes that they make. And so have you ever had somebody that, you know, your people all get through the first interview, all get through the second interview, they get to the third interview and they're all screened out because that person doesn't agree with the job order you're working off of or the contract that you're working off of. So and you've got to show them what's in it for them, you know, to be able to circulate this to everybody in the interviewing process. But I would say 50% of the time when we have very established clients, they make major changes that change the whole search. You know, and so that's just another tip of a way that you can fine-tune what you're doing. Let's see, if salespeople miss their targets and targets carry over to the next month, if this cycle of not meeting targets goes on for 2 months, third month's targets are basically unachievable. Might as well fire the person at the end of month 2. Is it advisable to lower the third month goals if the person has potential even though no results? No. What I would say you do, Dinesh, is if I've got somebody that's not hitting a target and they haven't hit it this month, I'm going to look at what they didn't hit, and if it's a big number, I might divide it by the 11 months left in the year. So if it's $11,000, I'm not going to add $11,000 to the second month because they're never going to do it. So I might divide it by 11 months, and then if they didn't hit it in February, then I'm going to take the difference and I'm going to disperse it in the 10 remaining months. And then what I'm going to do is when they start not making, if they haven't made goals for 2 months, now I'm going to put them on probation. I'm going to meet with them every single day. At the end of the day, I want to see what calls they've got, what outgoing calls they've got planned. I want to see if they're working the hottest orders in-house, and I'm going to do everything I can to turn this person around. You know, but they understand they're on probation. So, you know, you don't have to add it to the next month. You can add it to the next 11 months, you know, if it's a bigger number. It's a small number, you put it to the next month. But if it's a bigger number, just divide it by the number of months remaining in the year. And I can tell you, most of my training clients are doing this now, and they've all told me that it's incredible because all of a sudden, most of them just erased a goal after January. And when they started not erasing the goals, their people were like, oh my God, you know. And yet, what the owners are doing is they're tying all the contests and all the bonuses into what the people have on their 10 non-negotiable goals. You want somebody to really work hard for you? Look at what they're writing down as their 10 non-negotiable goals and help them attain one of them. You know, put a bonus or a contest that helps them attain what it is they're trying to attain for themselves and the people they love. Then you don't have to motivate them, and they will start hitting their numbers. You know, but you can't, the dangerous thing is not to do anything. Have them not hit their numbers and have you not do anything, because you're sending a message to them and you're sending a message to everybody else that's working for you that goals are not real. And you don't want to do that. Let's see. Okay, I'm getting a bunch of thank yous. You're very welcome. Let's see. Here's from Ryan. Our recruiters follow a specific time management schedule. One question I have is in regards to our outbound call time frame. In total, our time management schedules allow our recruiters 2.5 hours of strict outbound call time, and I was wondering if this is too short. It depends on the level, okay, of what you're doing. The average recruiter, both outgoing and incoming calls, does roughly 5.5 hours a day. So if you've got 2.5 hours of strictly outbound call time and you're segmenting your day, you know, what I love about that, and that's what we do in our organization, we take no incoming calls before noon. We never have. And our clients know we don't do that, and our candidates know we don't do that. If they need to reach us for something, our clients know they can tell our receptionist to interrupt us, and they will. But what we're doing in the morning is we're doing all of our outgoing calls. The only calls we take is if somebody said, you know, Barb said to interrupt the call when I call. Then they're going to interrupt me because that's a hit or that's a client. But, you know, in order for people to stay on the phones from the time they get there till noon, they have to plan out their calls. And 2.5 hours of strict outbound call time is probably more calls than a person would make doing 6 or 7 hours if they don't have their calls planned. So I don't think it's too short, because when you're telling them to focus on 2.5 hours of outgoing calls, they have to plan the calls in advance. They can't come and decide, who am I going to call today? They have to do that the night before. So I think that's sufficient. And then if you add on, another 2.5 hours of incoming and other things that they're going to do, you're right on the mark, Ryan. So I think that's fair. But again, you've got to see, is that giving you the results you want? If it's not giving you the results you want, then maybe you've got to up it another half hour or whatever. But I think the uninterrupted outbound call time, our people try to complete 60% of their planned outgoing calls before noon. Minimum, 60% of their outgoing planned calls before noon. Because in the afternoon, everything, feedback and debriefing and prepping and all that starts taking over. And so it's good to have that as a goal. And I totally believe in segmenting a day, because most recruiters waste so much time and they don't even realize they're doing it. They're spinning their wheels all day long, or they're calling the same people, same clients, same candidates over and over and over again, and they wonder why they're not producing. So I'm in agreement with what you do there. Okay, I'm getting a bunch of thank yous. I'm having somebody wants to talk to me offline, and absolutely you can. I will be honest with you. I am working from home today. I actually broke my leg, which I've never had a broken bone before, so I am working from home today. But if you want to talk to me, if you would just call that office on the screen, then give them your name and number, and I'd be glad if you've got questions about, the training program or whatever, I'd be glad to answer questions that you have about it. I would strongly suggest all of you, though, call and set up a demo. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Even by going through the demo, you're gonna learn a ton. And so is it worth 30 minutes of your time to schedule a demo and then have an hour of access? I would say yes. And again, if any of you want to invest, that our strategic management tour is a great program. It's a great program, and it's all management training. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. It looks like all the questions are answered. I wish you a record year this year, and please implement some of the ideas that we discussed today. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.